In a world where anything is possible, in a world where the normal and the paranormal reside, Almost Unbelievable brings to you the stories you want to hear, but fear to hear. Join us in the pit.
You have joined the Almost Unbelievable Paranormal Podcast with Cats and Ranty. I'm Cats. Are you there, Ranty?
I am Cats, and I am looking forward to today's incredible story. Again, as usual. How are you?
Yeah, I'm really, really good, and I'm looking forward to today's story. We've had a little bit of a brief kind of prelude to what it's going to be about, and it's reminded me of a couple of things from my past. Not my one personal past, but things that I've been aware of in the past, which I won't mind running by you, actually. Are you up for a little story?
I am. I'm all ears. Go ahead.
Now, do you ever? I'm sure listeners in the UK will be very familiar with horrible histories. Maybe not so much in the US. Have you ever watched horrible histories?
Actually, yes, I have. That's probably shocked you because every other time you ask me something, I'm always like, no, I have no idea what you're talking about. But yes, I have actually seen them, and they are very good as well. I do enjoy them.
They are amazing. They're well worth watching. If you're watching from the US and you want to pick it up on BBC iPlayer or something like that, essentially it's actually a children's program, isn't it? It started off on one of our children's channels, but it was that good and that interesting. It takes lots of historical stories, puts them in an educational context, but really entertaining. It's very difficult to explain, but they're very, 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 very good. One of my favorite segments was in the first couple of series called Stupid Deaths. I don't know if you're aware of Stupid Deaths.
I am.
Okay. Do you remember any stupid deaths that may be your favorite stupid death from history?
They were all stupid. So go ahead. You just tell it. You tell the story, Cats. Don't spoil it for the audience.
Well, before I get to the one that's relevant to today's show, actually, one of my favorite stupid deaths was Pythagoras. There's lots and lots of different stories about how Pythagoras might have died. We're not entirely sure, but one of the best ones, which is kind of one of the favorite in terms of plausibility. There was a political conflict between where Pythagoras lived in a small village and a slightly larger town. And there was, I'm not necessarily going to call it an uprising, but Pythagoras was seen as a bit of a figurehead in this political conflict. And he was being chased by some people that wanted to kill him until he ran to a barley field. Now, when he got to the edge of the barley field, he had a religion or like a code of life, and it was he was forbidden to tread on barley or anything that was a crop that was like a life-giving crop. So what he did is he ran away from these people that were about to kill him until he got to the edge of the barley field, where he just had to stand there and wait for them to catch him and kill him. Because he wasn't allowed to tread on barley. Now, I will admit that is like one of about 4 or 5 plausible stories of his death. Whether it's the actual one or not, I don't know. But I want to talk to you about Sir Francis Bacon. He was on Stupid Deaths. What do you know about him? Did you see that one?
Sir Francis Bacon, wasn't he the Knights Templar, or wasn't he supposed to be involved with the Knights Templar?
Oh, I don't know, but maybe we should do an episode on the Knights Templar and stuff. I'm not actually aware. Yeah, you might taught me something though. I'm going to have a look at that.
I think he was, and I think I might be wrong. I might be completely wrong here, but I do believe he had something to do with the Curse of Oak Island. I don't know if you've heard of that.
No, not at all. What's that all about?
Okay, so that would be, let's go back in history and let's say anywhere from 250 to 1,000 years ago. At some point during that time, there was an island called Oak Island full of oak trees, and over a period of time, let's say 15, 20 years, it was dug out underneath with lots of tunnels and booby traps and things like that, and it went down hundreds of feet. And basically, it's been alleged, at least, that lots of treasures were buried there. Could be the Ark of the Covenant or anything like that, or Shakespeare's novels, things like this. All kinds of things throughout history, all the things that the Templars were supposed to have put on the island for safekeeping. And the tunnels were found some time ago, and people went down to try and find what was down there. They found some loot on the way down, so they did find treasure. But then they activated a booby trap that flooded the entire tunnel. And basically, there's an excavation going on right now, currently, to try and dig up the whole of Oak Island to get down there to find out what's in there. But I do believe bacon was part of that, as from history, at least from what I can recall. And if that's completely wrong, I'll just omit it from the whole thing.
Yeah, we'll edit it out if it's wrong. We'll check afterwards and edit it out, or leave it in just for the hell of it. It's a good story. Yeah, I don't know. I'm going to look into that. That sounds interesting. I brought up Francis Bacon because of his stupid death. Francis Bacon was a little bit of a genius. He decided, obviously at the time, people didn't have fridges to keep their food cold, and salt was the main preservative. But obviously, salt isn't good for your blood pressure. If you have too much salt, it also makes the food obviously taste a little bit off. It's not brilliant for all food. And he had the idea that actually refrigerating food somehow, if you could find a way to keep it really, really cold, it will be fresher for a lot longer. And obviously he was right. We've got fridges, refrigerators now. It's fine. So what he decided to do to prove it, so he could then eat healthier and live longer, was to go out in the snow, kill a chicken, and then stuff the chicken with snow to freeze it and preserve it. And then he could, if that worked, he could eat healthier and live a longer life. Unfortunately, it backfired because while he was out in the snow, he caught pneumonia and died. Now, he did manage to kill the chicken and he did manage to stuff the chicken, but he was that ill before after he did it that he couldn't go home. He was taken to a place called Highgate, where he died in a house on Pond Square. And it is said that the ghost of the chicken is often seen around Pond Square in Highgate in London. A chicken ghost. What do you think of that?
Well, yeah, I think every cloud has a silver lining. So he may have died because of the snow, but he did actually still stuff the chicken. So you've got to take the good with the bad, I suppose.
every cloud, every cloud has a silver lining.
Indeed.
So we've got a chicken ghost, a ghost of an animal there. I don't know if you've also heard of the famous ghost that haunts RAF Scampton in Lincolnshire. That is an animal. I want to take a guess at what animal that might be.
Now I'm going to go revert to type and say I have no idea. So please tell me.
Well, I came across this story when I heard of a school trip during the 1980s, and when the school went to visit the RAF base, they all sat down on some benches next to a wall, and they had a photograph taken. And when the photograph was developed, there was a random Labrador sat in the middle of all the school kids. Now, I've actually downloaded that photograph and sent it to you, and I believe that people can see that on the Patreon. Am I right?
Hang on, let me just check, see if I've got the image. You said you just sent it to me, so let me just check that out. Hang on one sec. One sec. Ah, yes, you have sent me an image. Right, okay. Yes, I do see a dog, and you want this to go on Patreon. That's fine. Okay. And yes, so you've circled something. Did you circle that?
No, that was already circled on the internet. That is the Labrador. And it clearly is. Anyone who wants to look at this photograph will clearly see this isn't a faded, odd image. We've got a dog in the middle of some school kids. But the spooky part of this story is that none of the school kids report even noticing that a dog was there at the time. And then when they looked into the history of RAF Scampton, it turns out that a Labrador, which fit that description, was actually the mascot of one of the squadrons during World War II, and it died on the base. I think it was actually hit. It was knocked down. Wasn't killed in the war, but it was knocked down and killed on the base. And apparently that dog has reportedly been seen over the decades by many, 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 many people at that base. And the school kids didn't know anything about that. The school didn't know anything about that until they researched it post taking this photograph. Do you like them eggs?
Well, there's an image there, and what can I say? The story seems to stack up. If nobody can recall the dog actually being there when they took the photograph, then it's definitely an anomaly. What can I say? It's not the first time we've had something on camera, though, that would appear to be a ghost. We actually had the ghost that floated across the snow, remember? And we caught that on two separate cameras. So, yeah, I mean, it's possible that these ghosts can materialize and be caught on camera.
It's certainly interesting, and I wonder, as usual, if those stories have got anything to do with today's guest.
Well, it's actually plausible, plausible that this story might have something to do with the story we're just about to hear. So, without further ado, I'm going to introduce today's guest. Today's guest is called Rob, and he's going to tell us the story about his cat, or his dead cat. Here we go.
All right, thanks, guys. All right, so growing up, I had a cat that was like, he was my best friend. So every night from when I was little, from about the age of 8 or 9 when we got him, I would leave the bedroom door open for him to come in. And pretty much every night he would come in and he would jump on my bed and he would crawl up and he would sleep next to my head, curled up on the pillow. And then one night when I was a bit older, probably 18, 19, I was lying in bed and I got basically woken up by this feeling jumping on the bed, and I thought, oh, it's just a cat. And I could feel him walking up. And it took me a couple of seconds to click in my head that we'd actually got him put to sleep about a week earlier. And I moved so fast, I actually literally did jump out of bed and was shaking and was looking around everywhere, trying to find out what it could be, if there was something else in my room. Obviously, there wasn't. So I've told this story lots over the years to people, trying to find out what it could be, what other people's thoughts are. The general thing is that it's some kind of sleep phenomenon, sort of a dream within a dream, or sleep paralysis is one. But I've had experience of sleep paralysis in the past, which is always, every time I've had it, probably 2 or 3 times, it's always been sort of, I'm having a nightmare of some kind, and then something within that nightmare is like woken me up. And the big thing, obviously, about sleep paralysis is you wake up and you're paralyzed, you can't move. And I moved when I felt the cat on the bed. I was off that bed so fast, it was ridiculous. The one that maybe I've thought of would be a dream within a dream, but I don't know if you've had the feeling, when you wake up in the middle of the night, it could be for anything. It could be a noise, or you need to go to the bathroom. It kind of wakes you up and you're kind of half asleep, and you know you're awake. You're just kind of lying there going, oh, something's woke me up. What is it? It could have been a bang. It could be, like I said, to go to the bathroom. It takes you a few seconds to go, oh yeah, it was someone else going to the bathroom, or I need to get out of bed and go to the bathroom myself. That's what it was like when I felt the cat jump on the bed. I literally felt the pressure of him jumping on the bed, and that's kind of what woke me up first. And I was like, well, it's just the cat. And then I felt a couple of footsteps. It took me a couple of seconds to really go, hold on, no, the cat's dead. That's not the cat. And that's when I jumped out of bed. And yeah, like I always say to people, I wish I could have moved that fast on the football pitch. I might have got somewhere. But yeah, basically that's it. It was, like I said, it's a pretty short one, but I'd love to see what you guys think of it.
So, apologies if you already said this, but how old were you at the time?
I reckon I was 18, 19, around that age.
And did you have a history of the time of things like sleepwalking? I know you said you'd had sleep paralysis, etc., but how common was that kind of stuff for you?
So I reckon sleep paralysis throughout my whole life, I've probably had through 3 or 4 times. I reckon at that point, I'd maybe had once or twice. Yeah, I'd had it like a little bit a couple of times when I was younger, and I've had it a couple of times as I've got older as well. So,
what about lucid dreams?
Lucid dreams, I have had a couple as well. I've thought about that as well. But the thing with lucid dreams that I've had, straight away you're dreaming.
Yeah.
And nothing quite seems right. So like you're looking around, the colors aren't quite right, or you're in a familiar place, but there's just something off about it. It feels like a dream. It feels almost like an old movie or a video game or something. It's a bit weird, yeah.
And when you jumped out of bed, it sounds as if you were making a bit of a noise, bit of a racket. It sounds like you were a little bit shocked. Did you alert anyone else in the house? Will there be anybody else that will remember you having that experience?
I didn't wake anyone up at the time, but I did tell my mum the next day. But I didn't. No, there was no one at the time that kind of came in to see what was happening.
And I know you would have probably said this in the podcast, but just to be clear, were you the only person that experienced anything like this with the cat?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, sorry, I know some of these questions seem a little bit basic, but I know there'll be people at home thinking, well, ask him this, ask him that. So going back to the cat, and it's interesting that not only did you feel the cat jump on you, but you also felt a couple of footsteps afterwards.
Yeah.
How long was that amount of time? I know it's difficult to remember so far back, but how long do you think it all lasted, that?
Oh, it would have only been, a few seconds. It was, you feel the cat. I felt the cat jump on, and then I'm kind of like, couple of footsteps, and my initial thought it was just the cat, and then I kind of like went like wide-eyed. I was like, hold on, no, it's not. Cat's dead, and I'm getting out of here. 5 seconds, something like that. From when he jumped on to starting to come up the bed.
And was there any noise of footprints or movement or anything like that before you felt the jump on the bed?
No, because it was kind of it was that initial like jump on the bed that kind of got me to wake up, and I was like, like I said, when you feel, sometimes you're lying in bed and you feel something happen, it just gets you out of your sleep, and you're like, oh, what was that? It was kind of just like that, and then I said, felt the little footsteps, and first I was like, yeah, it's the cat, and then I was like, no, it's not.
Okay, and last question for me then before I pass you on to Auntie. When you felt the cat jump on the bed, I know you said it startled you awake. How long do you think you'd been asleep for? Were you just dozing off? Were you in that area, or were you completely zonked and fast out?
No, I would have been completely zonked because it was in the middle of the night. I hadn't just gone to bed or anything like that.
Right, okie dokie. Auntie, over to you, mate.
Okay, so you said that the cat used to sleep on your bed.
Yeah.
How did that occur? Was the cat already on your bed normally when it was alive, or did it creep in after you'd gone to sleep? Was this a normal thing?
It was, normal thing is that he would come in during the night. Like I said, I would normally leave the bedroom door open because I knew he would come in at some point. So I'd leave the door open, and he would come in and climb on and curl up next to me.
Okay. So would you say that when the cat was alive and it jumped on you, that you always woke up the same way?
Well, sometimes I'd sleep through it, but it was a common thing that it would kind of wake me up, and I would feel the footsteps, and it would be, that's why it was just a common thing. I'd be like, oh yeah, it's the cat, and then I'd doze back off to sleep. So I mean, it wouldn't wake me up every time, but sometimes it would.
Having cats myself in the past, I know that they have a certain routine. I mean, they will jump on, they'll walk to a certain area, they like to sit in a certain area, they like to basically spend the same amount of time doing the same thing. It becomes repetitive. Yeah. So when you felt this in your sleep, or you assumed that this was the cat there, was that exactly the same as it had been all the other times? Yeah, exactly the same. Because the way my bed was set up, the feet were like literally by the door, so it would come in there and it would jump on the end by my feet, and then it would walk up the side, which was against the wall, and it was exactly the same. That's what. Yeah. One last question from me then. Would you say that when you felt the cat on your legs, that you could determine that was a different feeling, different sensation to anything that you would experience in sleep? Well, I've never had a dream where like you feel pressure on the bed, or you feel it's like something's walking on the bed. I've never had a dream, never had an experience like that before. So yeah, that's it. Okay, well, I'm going to tell you something. I don't know whether you've heard this story on the podcast before, but I had a dog that passed away called Brandy, and he died when I was about, I don't know, 5, 6, 7, something like that. And we buried him in the back garden, and it snowed a few days later, and he used to sleep sometimes outside in the shed and sometimes in the house. He was made his own mind up, sometimes he would come in, sometimes he'd want to stay out shagging other dogs, I don't know, but he had the roam of anything he wanted to do. So he had 2 places that he could go to: sit in front of the fire at night, or he could actually sleep in the outside shed, which was always open. And my dad came in the morning and he said, you need to come and see this. There's some footprints from the grave to the shed. And sure as eggs were eggs, went outside, it had been snowing, and you could see the footprints of a dog, or an animal, let's say, from the grave. From the grave, didn't start anywhere else. It started at the grave and went to the outhouse. Now, I know Katz knows about this because he asked me before whether it was a fox or something like that. But I know for a fact that there was no other footprints there. It started at the grave and went to the outside shed.
Yeah,
So
that would be the first thing you look for, wouldn't it? If you'd be like, well, where have the footprints come from? Like you'd check straight away. So
yeah, I find this story interesting because it reminds me of that. Now, if in the past you could say, well, we've had an experience where a dog died and suddenly you've got these footprints. Well, you've just talked about footprints, feeling footprints yourself. This time in the past, we had physical proof of that. We had, the footprints in the snow, clearly proving that something stood in the snow at that point and put pressure on the ground to cause the footprints. And when we went to the shed, obviously there was nothing in the shed. There was no other animal in the shed, but the footprints didn't come back out of the shed. It only just went one way from the grave to the shed. So I find this story interesting, actually, because it kind of validates something that I experienced when I was a kid. So you can probably feel where I'm going to end up going with this story. And I'm sure Katz will have a different story on this, but it's very interesting nonetheless.
Oh, thank you.
Well, I think that's a great story. I think I know where I'm going to go with this, and maybe I'll chat to you off before we do we actually record it as an outro. But no, that was a fantastic story. Thank you so much for coming on. Me and Ranty will retire into the pit now to see if we can think of what we make of this, and
No worries.
hopefully we will not let you down.
Thanks, guys.
Rob, thank you so much for that story. I really, really enjoyed it. I'm an ex-cat owner myself, so I feel your pain when it comes to losing a cat, especially when you've had for a long time. I remember I had one that was 18 years with us before it passed on, and it's quite difficult to get over, so sorry for your loss. Anyway, we've got to make something of that ghost story. So I'm going to retire to the pit while I pass you over to Ranty. Off you go, Ranty.
Okay, well, interesting that you had a cat that lived to 18. We actually had a cat that lived to 24. 24 years of age. I think it should have been some kind of record or something here in the UK. But anyway, moving on. You did bring a cat up in the very beginning, actually. No, you didn't. What am I on about? Moving on.
Labrador.
You did that.
And a chicken.
And a chicken, yes. So, moving on. You did actually bring up a chicken at the start of the show. And you said that a chicken ghost haunts a building somewhere. I can't remember what it was called now, to be fair. My memory's pretty crap at the minute. So there are definitely stories out there with cats and dogs and any kind of animal as being some kind of ghost, as evidenced in the image that you provided of the Labrador. So my own personal experience, which I also talked about during the presentation, was of my dog, my personal dog, Brandy, when I was a child, and seeing the footprints go from the grave to the shed where he used to sleep. So I don't have anything more to say, I don't think. I think we've got evidence visually of an image that you provided, Katz. We have tales from the past, which you brought up about a chicken, and I also have first-hand experience of seeing footprints in the snow from Brandy's grave to the shed. So I think that's a wrap for me. I'm going to ask you now to science it out. Go ahead.
Well, I will try. Now, I have absolutely no doubt whatsoever that what Rob experienced was, or what he told his experience was exactly what he experienced. I have no doubt whatsoever that he was asleep. He felt himself be woke up by what felt very much like a cat jumping on him. I believe he felt the steps. I believe all of that. But what I do believe is an alternative explanation to there being the ghost of a dead cat. I've been looking at hypnagogic hallucinations, and I hope I've pronounced that right. We all know about seeing things as you're dozing off to sleep, and I'm sure we've all done it. I'm sure we've all felt things as we're drifting off to sleep. And in that transition between being asleep and awake, or awake and asleep, there is a huge proportion of people, up to even over a quarter of the population, that will I'm not going to say suffer from, but will experience hypnagogic hallucinations on a regular basis throughout their life. Now, these hallucinations trigger our senses to tell us that we genuinely are seeing something, or we genuinely are feeling something. I remember as a child, when I would be going to sleep, I'd open my eyes and I would genuinely think that I was seeing somebody stood in front of me. And if I really concentrated them on them long enough, they would kind of disappear, and I'd make out the clothes pile on the chair that was kind of forming their face, if you like, that my brain was interpreting to be an image. But when you get these hypnagogic hallucinations, they can come in all sorts of forms. It's not just seeing things. You can feel, you can hear things, you can taste things. All the senses can be affected. Now, one of the things about these hypnagogic hallucinations is that they tend to be more common. If you're going to get them, if you're going to experience them, you tend to experience them more for periods when you are stressed or grieving or upset, or you've got lots of thoughts running through your mind. And I think Rob's story ticks all those boxes. He was obviously very close to his cat. He was obviously very upset the cat had died. It was only a week later. Yes, he's told us he was sound asleep, which is perhaps the only thing that goes against what I'm going to say. I can only imagine that he was sound asleep, but he was slowly, rather than falling asleep, maybe he was slowly stirring and about to wake up. And that's what put him in that kind of like between sleep and being awake situation. So there is a science that will explain it. Obviously, again, I can't prove that it wasn't the ghost of a cat. I can't prove that, but hopefully I've provided at least an alternative explanation.
Well, as usual, Cats, you always give it a good go, don't you? You always try to throw water on the fire, dampen it down.
We should see.
Right, okay, well, I guess that's us done for this show. I'm going to wrap this one up, and yeah, I'm going to get out of here, and I'll see you all in the next one, guys.
Bye-bye.